First things first, Jacob. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm tired but happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I want to start with is, do you remember the first album you ever bought
Bought
with your own money?
my own money. That's a good question. Might have been something like Talking Book by Stevie Wonder. I remember buying that when I was probably before I was 10, maybe, because I had such a Stevie Wonder crush.
Why?
And I wanted to find, because I think he had the energy in his music, the joy of his music, the harmony, and his voice. Everything about him is wonderful. And I went on a quest to find as much music as I could.
And why that particular album?
That album, I'm not sure. I think it was recommended by a friend. And he was 21 when he made it, which is how old I am now. So it's amazing to see that music. Yeah.
And what was your impression when you first put it on?
Oh, ridiculously amazing. Yeah, so full and rich and warm and giving and loving. Yeah.
You say you were 10 at the time. Were you already consciously thinking about making music?
Yes, absolutely. So I was born into a family of musicians.
Okay.
Everybody plays and everybody sings. And so I would create these musical things all the time. Whether it's playing an instrument or recording something. So when I listened to albums, I thought about how they were paced and how they, how did he get that sound? What's that chord? And these kinds of things made that listening process quite active, even when I was very, very small.
So what kind of music are we talking about? What kind of music was being played? You mentioned Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
Was it more in those lines, or could it be?
Stevie was so important, but people like Bobby McFerrin, Take Six, Steely Dan, and Sting, and Earth, Wind and Fire, people like this, and also Bach, and also classical, kind of classical stuff. It was a really big mixture of things in my house, and I loved everything.
And when for you the jazz, the kind of jazz sounds?
Jazz came slightly later for me actually. When I was about 15 or 16, I really got into jazz, but I realised that I loved harmony, and I loved rhythm, and I loved improvisation so much, and those are the three ingredients that make jazz. So it made sense.
And well, like you say, you come from a musical family, so can I assume then that there were musical instruments all over and you can just pick one up and start playing?
Yeah. I mean, I always went to the piano because the piano had the harmony inside. I always sang, but I tapped on everything like this. But I remember I got a double bass for something like my 14th birthday, I think, and that was a new beast. But I understood the double bass before I played one, because I'd listened to double bass players. So I thought I understand what that double bass is and feels, and then when I got one, it's like my hands had to catch up with my ears a bit.
How long did that take until, not just for the bass, but for all instruments, when your abilities kind of caught up with what you had in your mind?
I don't think they have yet.
Okay.
It's always the process of catching up. But yeah, I think it's one of those ongoing learning processes. You learn about how something feels musically, and then how to play it comes afterwards, for me.
When then did you think you were proficient enough to kind of show what you were doing to other people?
I never really thought I think now I'm good enough. It was more, I always created things, and one day I started to share them with people. And so I think it was, I don't mind too much about what other people think. It's very much just kind of creating for the sake of creating. I love it so much, and that's the reason I do it.
And well, you're 21 years old, so you're very much part of the internet generation.
Yeah.
So how did social media affect the way you can do your music?
Well, it's huge. It's endless. It's scary a bit, but extremely powerful. And I think it's exciting because it gives the power into the hands of the creator. There's no power in the record company executive anymore, or there is a little bit, but the main power comes from people who just want to create things. And social media means that they can do anything they like. There are no rules. So for me, it's very special to be able to interact with my fans and my friends absolutely just immediately like this. It's a lovely thing.
And then this creativity, this might sound like a weird question, but what do you get out of it, out of this creativity?
I think what music does best is it sort of brings people together. So people all over the world can come together and enjoy the music. And I think for me, that's one of the greatest things, is seeing how people can become friends with each other and listen and share things. And I think, music and social media, both of those things are about sharing. So, for me it was enjoying, it's always been enjoying that process of giving to people. But for me, I just keep on exploring.
Okay.
And the fact that I can explore and people are also I can share the explorations is great.
So if you listen to things you did maybe a year or 2 years ago, can you hear a big difference?
I can hear a difference because I'm growing all the time. I'm growing quite fast right now, but I think it's the same Jacob.
Okay.
In there, but it's just with more skills and more life lived, more human, and it's I guess it's the same thing as anybody in your life. If you look back 2 years ago, you think, oh, that's me, but it's slightly different.
Sure. And how can I phrase this? The downside of social media is also, well, you say sharing, but there's also a side of it that people tend to have their opinions and want to voice them. So how do you deal with that?
That's fine. I mean, the thing about social media is everybody is equal and you can say whatever you like. And people are crazy. People are crazy in the world too, but on social media sometimes you get people who do, like, they bite you. And I just don't mind really. I mean, it's interesting to look through, but as I was saying, I don't make music for the reason for those comments. I make music because I love to make music, and so everybody has an equal opinion to me.
Okay.
And it's nice. But in general, people are so lovely about the things that I create, and it's really amazing to see that spreading around the world. It's nice to feel like there are positive things being made. It's nice.
And how then? Because this might be a difficult question to answer, but what for you makes a good song? What is in your head? What are you trying to?
Well, for me, I think the best thing that you can aim for is to be as true to yourself as you can. And so I looked at myself in making this album that I've just released. I thought, well, Jacob, what's it all about? And I guess I realised that I'm quite chaotic in many ways, and quite creative, and also quite simple in some ways, and just to explore all the different parts of things and to find songs which had all these different things in, and I put so much of my life and the things that I really long for and the things that I really love and things that I wish I could do, and I would learn to do them, and it's that process of in every song putting something of yourself in the song. But I think a good song is a song that somebody else can see themselves in.
Okay.
Otherwise, it ends up being about yourself all the time. I'd love to feel like I'm writing songs that people can think that they recognize part of their own life in that song, and it becomes part of their life for that reason.
Is there maybe a track on the album that you've had responses to from people that they can relate?
Yeah, I know that a song like In the Real Early Morning, which is a very slow song about this sort of interaction with a past figure in your life, this is a song that people have really sort of felt deeply like this. But also, songs like Hideaway, I think the first song that I released from the album, it's like a sort of love song, but a celebration of having a world of your own, this world in your head, and I think people kind of can relate to that and understand that and rejoice in that.
And well, is music for you a very solitary thing?
It's not solitary, but I think that parts of it are solitary. Okay. There's the music which is playing with your friends and playing with other people and learning and communicating, and then there's the music which for me is crafting and considering and placing, and they're two very different processes, but both are very important to me. So some of it is solitary. This album was obviously solitary because I made it on my own, but things like tonight when I played the show here, that's not solitary at all. Okay. That's sharing with the whole room and that kind of thing.
This creative process then, do you prefer to be alone for that then?
Some parts of it I do. Sometimes the very small details are easier to do when you're on your own, and then the larger, the bigger gestures are easier when there are other people to, help you out. But I think that it's always a balance between very small and very big, and sometimes other people can help, and sometimes I'm happy on my own. Yeah.
So in the future, do you see yourself creating a whole band on stage?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Yeah.
So that's what you are working towards.
Yeah, so right now this tour is celebrating the one-man thing and getting the Jacob solo show to be as big as it can,
Right.
exciting as it can, and after that it's like everything is possible.
Okay. And well, the album is called In My Room.
Yeah.
Can I assume then that the album was created in your room?
Yes. Every single sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't have the cover here, but is that your actual room?
That's the room.
Okay, because it's full of instruments.
It is full of instruments. Yeah.
How do you decide what to do creatively? Is it just instinct and
It's instinct. I mean, I've honed that as a skill for the last 10 years. You know, that's I've always lived in the same house, and that was always the music room.
Oh, okay.
So I know it very, very well. And when I go in there, it's kind of like my main instrument, because I think about, well, harmony, and I want to do something. How do I get how do I get that sound? And I think, well, I know from having learned and explored before that I get it from this drum, and then I knock on the floor, I do a little clap, and I get a saucepan from the kitchen, something like that. And you get little kind of recipes of things which you memorize, and it's a process of learning how to create these sounds. And I'm still learning all the time, but this album is the room singing, and I tried to make it sing as much as I could.
So for the next project then, because the room is very full, I don't think you'll be able to fit more instruments in there.
Probably not very many more, no.
So is your mind already with what you want to do next?
Kind of,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I'd love to do lots and lots of collaborations with many, many people. I'm already beginning to think about this and plan this kind of empire in my head. The room will always be there, and I think it will be probably the place where I come back and do the crafting. But I want to do lots of traveling and playing with other people and learning and creating. Yeah.
Yeah, because you do travel now to do shows, and you see a lot of the world. Does that influence? Well, let me phrase that differently. Do you notice that what you write now is different than when you were mostly in your room?
Yeah, I think it's to do with traveling, but also just to do with growing.
Okay.
And I've, the fact I wrote those songs, those were kind of like the first songs I've ever written, and now it's like the table is turning over, and it's like a new chapter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, do you already notice what direction you're headed in?
No idea.
Okay. And finally, then lyrics as well. Was it easy to put your personal, because you mentioned putting a bit of yourself in each song, so was it easy to do?
I think it would be hard not to.
Okay.
Because otherwise you're pretending, you're imagining you're somebody else. But I think that the best thing to do, the most natural thing for me to do was to explain things that I know about. And it's not always like I have this one friend and I write about this friend.
Okay.
It's more I know what friendship is or something, and you take from all of your different experiences, and it's not very specific, but it's fed by your life. So the more life you live, the greater the songs get, I guess.
What track on the album do you think you've captured what you wanted to say best?
Something like Hajanga is a real celebration of life and the fact that it's a big circle. Things go round and round and round, and that's a nice song for me to feel like it's giving people the strength to enjoy the fact things go up and then they go down and around, and that they can acknowledge themselves within that. I think that's something that I'm happy to be promoting.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.